The Galactic Union survey ship HFY Dawn drifted silently through the black ocean of space. Its long, silver body reflected the light of distant stars, and inside, a group of alien officers stared at the glowing holographic map that filled the command deck. For weeks they had been exploring the outer rim of the galaxy, looking for habitable planets or dangerous anomalies. Most of the time they found lifeless rocks or gas giants. But today was different. The sensors had found a planet, a strange planet. Captain Zarel, a tall insectoid being with dark green chitin, leaned forward. His large compound eyes shimmered as he read the numbers. Class 20, Deathworld, he whispered, his voice clicking in fear. The crew gasped. A Class 20 Deathworld was not just dangerous, it was beyond survival. These worlds were full of storms that ripped metal apart, predators with teeth like plasma cutters, poisonous air that burned lungs, and earthquakes that never ended. Entire war fleets avoided such planets. To discover one was terrifying enough. To get closer was madness. Lieutenant Auric, a thin reptilian officer, turned his scaled head toward the captain. We should mark it and leave. No life form could ever live here. Even machines would fail within hours. But then the ship's sensors beeped. The sound was sharp and clear. Every officer turned their gaze to the new readings. Life detected, the computer announced. The command deck filled with silence so heavy it felt like a storm pressing against their hearts. Life? On a Class 20 Deathworld? Impossible. Auric hissed. The computer must be broken. Zarel shook his head slowly. The readings are stable. Millions of warm bodies, scattered across the surface. His voice lowered to a whisper. They are not just surviving. They are thriving. The holographic display shifted, showing the planet. The screen zoomed closer. Mountains with glowing rivers of lava, seas boiling with storms, giant forests where shadows of monstrous creatures moved, and in the middle of these horrors, small bright dots. Colonies, settlements, cities. The aliens stared in shock. Commander Yitha, a bird-like officer with golden feathers, squawked nervously. Who could live there? Even the warlike Krell Empire would not dare. Even the shadow beasts would not last. Who could call this home? The ship's computer translated the signals. A flag appeared above the glowing dots. A symbol the Galactic Union had seen many times in reports. It was the symbol of Earth. A blue circle with a white star in the middle. Humans, every officer froze. Impossible, Auric said again, though his voice trembled now. Humans cannot be here. They are reckless, yes. They are strong, yes. But this is suicide. The captain stared at the map. His mandibles clicked nervously. And yet, it is them. Humans. The crew began whispering among themselves. Stories about humans had already spread across the galaxy. Stories of how they fought wars on toxic worlds, how they walked without fear, where others used armored suits, how they turned deserts into farms and frozen wastelands into cities. Some called them insane. Others called them unstoppable. But even in those stories, no one had ever heard of humans colonizing a Class 20 Deathworld. And yet here it was. The captain gave the order to bring the ship closer. The HFY Dawn entered orbit around the planet. Through the viewing window, the officers saw it with their own eyes. The storms were endless. Purple lightning flashed across the skies. Hurricanes spun across oceans like whirling blades. Volcanoes erupted in red fountains, painting the horizon with fire. Gigantic winged beasts circled above the mountains, each one large enough to swallow a shuttle whole. The ground shook constantly. Rivers split open, forests burned and regrew in the same day. It was chaos. It was death. And yet, humans were there. On the beaches of boiling seas, humans were building resorts. Tall white hotels stood against the crashing waves. They had strange machines protecting the walls, but people inside walked freely, wearing simple clothing. Some even swam in the dangerous waters, laughing as if it were nothing. On the lava mountains, humans were climbing with ropes, cheering with joy as rivers of molten fire flowed beside them. They took pictures. They waved flags. They treated the danger like a game. In the storm clouds, ships full of humans were flying. Not military ships, but luxury cruises. The humans drank, danced, and celebrated while outside, lightning storms screamed. The aliens on the command deck stared in disbelief. "This is not a colony," Etha whispered. "This is not survival. This is—" She stopped, unable to find words. Captain Zarel finished for her. "Tourism." The word spread across the crew like a virus. Tourism. Humans were not struggling here. They were not fighting to survive. They were vacationing. Orek hissed in fear. What kind of species treats a Deathworld as a playground? No one answered. They simply stared, as the horror turned into awe. The captain lowered his head. His mandibles clicked quietly, almost like a prayer. If humans come here for fun, what will they do when they are serious? Outside, the Deathworld roared with storms and fire, and the humans laughed within it, fearless, alive, and stronger than anyone could understand. The aliens had discovered something far greater than a planet. They had discovered the truth about humanity. And for the first time, the crew of the Vayari, Dawn felt fear, not of the Deathworld, but of the humans who called it entertainment. The Vayari Dawn remained in orbit for hours. The alien officers kept staring at their screens, trying to understand what they were seeing. No matter how many times they checked the readings, the answer stayed the same. The humans were alive. Not only alive, they were happy. At last, Captain Zarel gave the order. "Prepare a landing craft. We must see this with our own eyes." The crew hesitated. Landing on a Class 20 Deathworld was against every survival law in the Galactic Union. But the captain's authority was absolute. Slowly, a shuttle detached from the ship and descended into the violent atmosphere. The ride was chaos. Lightning flashed around them, thunder shook the walls, and the winds pushed the shuttle like a toy. Every alien officer held on to their seats, their eyes wide in terror. Yet when they broke through the clouds, a shocking sight awaited them. Below, on a wide beach, humans were building sandcastles. Children ran across the sand while giant waves, taller than cities, crashed just meters away. Strange force shields shimmered faintly, holding back the killer water. But the humans did not look afraid. They played, laughed, and shouted with joy. The shuttle landed on the edge of the beach. Steam hissed from the ground as the heat from volcanic vents burned through the sand. The alien crew walked out carefully, wearing heavy survival suits that could withstand plasma fire. Their helmets filtered the poisonous air and blocked the deadly radiation. And then they saw them. Humans. A group of humans were roasting food over a fire. They wore simple shorts, shirts, and hats. Their skin was unprotected, their feet bare, yet they looked perfectly comfortable. One of them waved when he saw the aliens. "Hey there, you guys tourists too?" The aliens froze. The human's voice was casual, friendly, as if speaking to neighbors. Captain Zarel tilted his head. His translator device repeated the words. "Tourists?" "Yeah," the man said, smiling. He was holding a long stick with marshmallows at the end, toasting them over blue flames. "You came for the adventure package?" The alien officers exchanged glances. Adventure package? What madness was this? Etha, the bird-like officer, stepped forward. "This is a Class 20 Deathworld," she said, her voice trembling. "It is not possible to live here." The human laughed, a deep, warm sound. "Oh, you must be new. This place is amazing. Best surfing in the galaxy. Best climbing, too. And if you're into danger sports, nothing beats running through the thunderfields." The aliens stared in silence. Behind the human, two children ran into the boiling surf, splashing each other as if it were normal water. Their parents called out, telling them not to go too far, but their voices were playful, not afraid. Orek hissed in disbelief. "Children? They bring children here?" Another human, a woman with sunglasses, leaned back in a chair. She was reading a book while a massive shadow moved in the sea behind her. A giant tentacled beast rose from the waves, roaring loud enough to shake the earth. The aliens froze in terror. But the woman only sighed and pressed a button. The beast hit a glowing barrier, shrieked, and vanished back into the deep. "Don't worry," she said casually. "The resort keeps the big ones away during the day. At night, they let some through for the thrill hunters." The alien crew could not believe what they were hearing. Zarel forced himself to ask, You are not afraid?" The human man shrugged. "Afraid? Nah, that's the point. Why go on vacation to some boring, safe world when you can come here and feel alive? The danger is the fun." The words echoed in the aliens' minds. The danger is the fun. The captain turned slowly, watching the scene. More humans were arriving on shuttles. Some carried climbing gear, others had hoverboards for riding the violent waves. A group prepared to parachute into the hurricane that spun just over the mountains. There was laughter everywhere, joy in chaos. "Life and death," Yitha whispered. They treat this like a game." The humans noticed the fear in the aliens' faces. One tourist, a young woman with bright eyes, walked over. She held out a roasted marshmallow. "Want some?" Orek recoiled. "You offer food here in this nightmare?" The woman smiled. "Nightmare? No. This is paradise. Earth was worse than this sometimes. We grew up with danger. We know how to handle it." She looked out at the boiling sea, the erupting volcano in the distance, the monsters in the shadows. "To us this is beautiful." The alien stood in silence, unable to answer. Then a sudden roar split the air. From the jungle behind the beach, a massive predator burst forth. It was covered in spikes, with claws like swords and eyes glowing red. It charged straight toward the human camp. The aliens panicked. Weapons were raised. Alarms blared in their suits, and Orek shouted, "Run!" But the humans did not run. A group of children pointed and cheered. One shouted, "Look, a spike beast!" The predator lunged, only to be stopped by a simple human device. A glowing collar around its neck pulsed with light. The beast froze, tamed. Then it lowered its head like a giant pet. The children climbed onto its back, laughing. The aliens nearly collapsed from shock. The young woman smiled again at them. "Don't worry, they're safe now. We domesticated them last year." Domesticated. A monster that could kill armies, now treated like a riding animal. The crew of the Vayari Dawn realized something deeper in that moment. Humans did not just survive here. They adapted. They controlled. They made the impossible their playground. And, for the first time, the aliens began to fear not the world, but the humans who claimed it as their vacation spot. The captain whispered to himself, his mandibles trembling. If this is vacation, then what do they call war? The sound of human laughter filled the burning sky. The fire crackled on the black sand beach, and the air shimmered with heat from both the volcanic vents and the roasting flames. The alien crew of the Vayari Dawn sat stiffly in their armored suits, staring at the smiling humans around them. None of this made sense. Captain Zarel leaned forward. His mandibles clicked softly as he spoke. Why do you come here? This place kills everything." The man with the marshmallows laughed and passed a stick to one of the children. "Kills everything. Not us. We come here because it makes us feel alive." The aliens could not understand. Orek tapped his claws on his wrist screen, showing data. Radiation levels beyond safety. Heat waves strong enough to melt armor. Beasts with claws sharper than plasma. These are facts. How are you not destroyed? The human woman in sunglasses closed her book and looked up. Her voice was calm. "Because we are human. Danger is normal for us." The words landed like thunder. The crew waited for more, their eyes wide. The woman continued. "Earth, our home, was not gentle. We grew up with storms, earthquakes, volcanoes, plagues, predators, wars, and chaos. Our ancestors survived it all. They did not hide. They fought, adapted, and changed. So when we find a place like this..." She gestured toward the boiling sea and the erupting mountains. "We do not fear it. We enjoy it." Yitha's feathers puffed nervously. "Enjoy?" "Yes," the woman said. To you, this world is a graveyard. To us, it is a theme park. The alien crew sat in silence. The humans were serious. Nearby, a group of tourists prepared for an expedition. They strapped on light packs, checked ropes, and smiled for pictures. The guide, another human, shouted, "All right, folks, today we climb the lava spires. Eruption cycle is every 40 minutes, so stay close. If you fall, well, at least the view is worth it." The group cheered loudly, as if death was only part of the fun. Zeril turned to the woman again. "Do your leaders allow this? Do your governments not forbid such madness?" She smirked. "Our leaders built this place. The Galactic Union told us it was impossible, so we built hotels, safaris, adventure tours. We turned a Deathworld into a vacation spot. That is what humans do." Her voice was calm, but every alien officer felt the weight of it. Humans did not see impossibility. They saw opportunity. Auric leaned close to Zerel, whispering through the suit comms. "This is not natural. No species should behave like this. They are broken." But Zerel shook his head slowly. "No, not broken. Different." The humans around them continued their activities. Children played with domesticated spike beasts. Couples surfed boiling waves. Groups of thrill-seekers jumped into the hurricane's edge using glider suits, their laughter carried by the roaring winds. Everywhere the aliens looked, they saw joy where they expected fear. Finally, Yitha asked, "What about death? Do you not fear losing your lives?" The Marshmallow Man chuckled. "Of course we fear it. That is why it is fun." The aliens froze at the answer. The human leaned forward, his smile strangely soft. "Fear is not something to avoid. It is something to embrace. It sharpens the senses, makes every moment brighter. On safe worlds, you never feel that edge. Here, every second is alive." The concept twisted in the aliens' minds. They had always treated fear as a warning, a signal to retreat. For humans, it was an invitation to experience more. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared across the camp. The ground trembled and the sea surged higher. A red flare shot into the sky. The guide shouted, "Eruption incoming! Everyone get ready!" The aliens panicked, activating shields, preparing to retreat. But the humans cheered. Hundreds of them rushed to the lava cliffs, cameras in hand. Moments later, a massive volcano exploded in a fountain of molten fire. The sky turned crimson. Ash rained down like snow. The air shook with force, and the humans clapped. They took pictures, hugged each other, and shouted in joy. Zerel could not move. His heart pounded as he realized something terrifying. Humans were not ignoring danger. They were dancing with it. The eruption ended, leaving glowing rivers of lava flowing down the mountain. The humans slowly returned to camp, smiling and laughing as if they had just watched fireworks. The alien crew stood in silence, shaken to their cores. The woman in sunglasses spoke again. Her voice was calm, but her words cut like a blade. "You aliens always ask the wrong question. You ask how we survive. But the truth is simpler. We survive because that is what we are. We are survivors. We are builders. We are explorers. Where you see death, we see life." She leaned back in her chair, pulling down her sunglasses. Her human eyes burned with a strange light. "And if this is what we call a holiday, imagine what we call war." The words sank deep into the alien officers' minds. They felt colder than the lava around them. The captain lowered his head. He understood now. The humans were not just another species. They were something more, something dangerous, something unstoppable. And as the night fell on the Deathworld with humans singing around the fire while predators howled in the distance, the crew of the Vayari Dawn realized the truth. This was not a vacation planet. This was a warning. Because if humans treated death as entertainment, then nothing in the galaxy could ever truly defeat them. The night spread across the Deathworld like a curtain of fire and storm. The sky glowed with violent colors. Purple lightning tore across the horizon, and mountains rumbled as rivers of lava poured into the dark sea. For the alien crew of the Vayari Dawn, The planet looked like the last place any life could exist, but the humans moved through the chaos as if it was nothing more than a festival. On the beach, families sat together near blazing fires, roasting food, singing songs, and telling stories. Children ran around, their laughter echoing louder than the roar of the waves. Some tourists prepared for midnight activities, tightening their climbing gear and checking their storm harnesses. They were planning to enter the forest full of predators, or even to glide into the edge of the hurricane that circled above the mountains. Every sound, every sight, every movement that filled the aliens with terror was treated by the humans as ordinary fun. Captain Zarel gathered his officers close to the shuttle. Their survival suits gleamed faintly under the stormlight, and their voices were low and uneasy. Orek, his reptilian scales trembling, hissed angrily that this was not a vacation, but a ritual of madness, that humans were flirting with death at every turn. Yitha's golden feathers shook as she whispered that if humans could call this joy, then what would they call war? Another officer muttered that perhaps they should leave, report nothing, and pretend this never happened. Zarel said nothing for a long time. His eyes followed the sight of children running across the sand, their small feet leaving prints that were quickly erased by boiling waves. Behind them, a tamed predator followed like a playful beast, its glowing eyes now gentle, its spikes harmless. The humans clapped and laughed at the sight, as if danger itself had been turned into a toy. At last the captain spoke softly. His voice carried a weight heavier than the storm. He said they could not run. They had to stay and understand. As if in response to his words, a group of humans approached them. They carried climbing tools, glowing ropes, and light packs. Their faces were calm, even cheerful. The leader, a tall, scarred man, grinned as he invited the aliens to join them on a night safari into the predator forest. Orek's voice cracked in horror as he called it suicide. The man only laughed and said it was adventure. A small child stepped forward holding a glowing stick, her voice soft and fearless as she told the aliens not to worry, because the monsters were not so scary once you knew them. The aliens could hardly believe what they heard, yet they followed out of duty, their weapons ready, their shields humming at full power. The forest was alive with danger. Roots twisted out of the ground like claws, glowing eyes flashed from the shadows, and terrible roars shook the air. Every step filled the aliens with panic, but the humans walked casually, pointing at strange plants, joking with each other, sipping glowing drinks as if this deadly wilderness was no more dangerous than a garden. Then came the moment that broke the aliens' courage. From the darkness, a massive beast charged. It was larger than any tank, its body covered with jagged spikes, its jaws wider than a shuttle door. The aliens screamed warnings, their weapons rising, but before they could fire, the human guide calmly threw a small device. It pulsed with light and the monster stopped. Its roar died into a low rumble, and then, unbelievably, it lowered itself to the ground and purred like a tame animal. The children climbed onto its back with laughter, their tiny hands gripping its spikes as if they were handles. The alien crew stood frozen, their blood running cold. Orek whispered with shaking breath that the humans had tamed a nightmare. Zarel said nothing, his mind caught in silent horror. Later, when they returned to the beach, the aliens gathered once more in private. Yitha's feathers were ruffled and dim. She said they could not match this species, that they laughed where others screamed and played where others died. Orek added that if humans treated such a world as a playground, then in war, they would be monsters beyond imagination. The others whispered fearfully that maybe humans were not built like any other species, that maybe every world felt soft to them. The council fell into silence, their eyes drifting back to the camp. The humans were still laughing under the storm-lit sky. Couples danced near the fire, their shadows stretching across the black sand. Children chased sparks from erupting volcanoes as if they were fireflies. Nothing in their faces suggested madness. It was simply their normal life, and that realization was more terrifying than the predators or storms. Captain Zarel walked away from his officers and stood by the sea. The waves boiled and steamed, the air poisoned everything, yet human swimmers splashed happily behind glowing barriers, shouting with joy as if they were in paradise. His voice was quiet, almost like a prayer, as he whispered that if this was play, then what was war? The truth settled deep into his chest like a heavy stone. Humans had not conquered the death world with weapons or fleets. They had conquered it with laughter and courage. They had turned fear into joy. They had turned death into a holiday. And as the storm grew louder, a human guide walked toward them again, smiling warmly. He told them that tomorrow morning they were skydiving into the heart of the hurricane, and that the aliens should join them because it would change the way they saw life. The alien crew could not answer. Their bodies shook, their minds filled with dread. The humans smiled, and the aliens realized they were not standing among fools. They were standing among a species that did not fear the impossible, because the impossible was their home. The dawn came slowly on the death world, though it did not bring peace. The sky was red with smoke, the ocean boiled with storms, and the mountain spat fire into the rising sun. For the alien crew of the Ve'ari Dawn, every sound was a warning of death, every sight a promise of destruction. But the humans woke with yawns and laughter, stretching their arms as if the chaos around them was nothing more than a gentle morning breeze. Tourists hurried toward the cliffs with bright eyes and wide smiles. They strapped on light suits with wings and prepared to leap into the heart of the hurricane spinning in the distance. Others rushed toward the volcano paths, ready to climb while the ground trembled beneath them. A few walked calmly into the boiling sea, their protective barriers humming softly, their voices cheerful as they joked about who would stay longest in the toxic surf. The alien crew stood together near their shuttle, frozen in disbelief. Every instinct told them to escape, yet they could not look away. They had come to study danger, but what they found was a mirror that showed them their own weakness. Humans were not avoiding fear. They were living inside it. Captain Zarel tried to steady his voice as he asked a passing human guide how long people had been coming here. The guide smiled proudly and said the resorts had been running for more than 5 years. 5 years. The aliens nearly collapsed in shock. Their strongest armies would not last 5 hours on this planet, yet humans treated it as a vacation. The guide went on to explain, his tone casual, that humans had adapted the environment. They tamed the predators with devices and patience. They built barriers strong enough to resist lightning and waves. They mapped eruption cycles so climbers could survive on lava cliffs. But his words carried a deeper truth, one that chilled the aliens more than the science. The humans did not simply endure the danger. They wanted it. They sought it. Because to them, safety was boring. Yitha whispered to Auric that perhaps humans were not sane, that they were reckless creatures with no regard for life. But Auric shook, his head slowly, his eyes fixed on the hurricane where humans were diving with joyful screams. "No," he said softly. "This is not madness. This is strength. A kind of strength we cannot understand." As the day grew hotter, the humans gathered on the cliffs. They invited the alien crew to join them, offering gear, smiling warmly, promising that it would be the experience of a lifetime. The aliens refused, their fear stronger than curiosity. But they stayed to watch. They saw humans throw themselves into the roaring winds, spinning, falling, laughing. The hurricane swallowed them whole, yet minutes later they flew out again with wide grins, their voices rising in songs of triumph. The alien crew could no longer deny the truth. Humans were not surviving here by chance. They were thriving because their nature was built for chaos. The galaxy had always whispered about humanity, about their stubbornness, their recklessness, their ability to adapt. But this was no rumor. This was proof. As night returned once more, Zarel stood apart from his crew, his gaze fixed on the glowing horizon. His mandibles trembled as he spoke, not to anyone in particular, but to the dark sky itself. He said that, if this was what humans called a vacation, then the galaxy must pray never to see them in war. Behind him, the humans sang around fires, their voices mixing with the howls of beasts and the rumble of volcanoes. The alien officers gathered close, whispering that they should return to the Union at once. They argued whether the truth should be hidden or shared. Some said revealing this would spread terror. Others said hiding it would be more dangerous still. And then, at that very moment, the humans gave them the final revelation. A young woman, the same one who had offered them marshmallows, looked into the flames and spoke softly, almost as if she knew the aliens were listening. She said that humans had always been children of a death world. Earth itself had once been marked as unlivable by early alien scouts. Poisonous jungles, violent beasts, endless storms, burning deserts, freezing mountains, all of it had shaped them. For thousands of years, their kind had grown stronger, not in spite of danger, but because of it. She looked up, her human eyes reflecting the fire. "We do not run from Deathworld," she said. "We are born from one." The words struck harder than any storm. The aliens felt their breath catch in their throats. They understood now why humans were fearless, why they laughed in the face of terror. This was not vacation to them. This was a reminder of home. The crew of the Vayari Dawn left the next morning, their shuttle lifting into the storm-filled sky. Not a word was spoken during the ascent. Each officer was lost in thought, their minds filled with the terrible truth. Back. Aboard their ship, Captain Zarel gave the final command. "Record everything, seal it, and prepare the report for the Galactic Union." His voice shook as he said the last line. "The galaxy must understand what we have seen, because if humans call this leisure, then none of us are ready for what they will call war." The ship turned away, leaving the death world behind. But in the minds of every alien officer, the AO sound of human laughter followed them like a shadow that would never fade. And in the silent halls of the Union, when this report would finally be read, a new fear would awaken. Not of the storms, not of the predators, not of the fire, but of the humans who called them home.